Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about SugarChimp. It's the integration between Sugar and Mailchimp. The goal of SugarChimp is to keep both Sugar and Mailchimp up to date on both sides. So when you're working in Mailchimp, you can always have the most up to date information based on Sugar data. You can kick off automations based on Sugar changes and also use Mailchimp's segmenting features to really narrow down the scope of your campaign. As we talk about SugarChimp today, there are three a set really big differences between these plans here. These are based on different features that SugarChimp has, the basic, the professional, and ultimate plan. So as we cover the different features, I'll be sure to point out which feature belongs to which plan so that you'll know which plan might be best suited for you. The enterprise plan is a higher level plan. There's no difference in the features that are available in terms of the actual integration. However, you get a little bit more of a dedicated guided experience with that. So with enterprise, you get a dedicated account manager. We also manage your upgrades. So when SugarChimp has a new version that comes out, we'll install it for you and make sure that it works the way that it should. And we also provide things like training on demand. All right, well, let's jump into it. The first thing we're going to do is actually hop into Sugar, and we're going to talk about installing the integration. And then we'll talk about where you see the integration within Sugar itself. So to install it, that's done through the module loader. Similar to any other plugin or integration that you have, it takes about 3 minutes to install. Once you've done that, we walk through a SugarChimp setup process. So this will ask for your license key, which you get when you start your SugarChimp trial. And in addition to that, it will ask you to log into MailChimp using your MailChimp credentials. It does need to be an admin account, so make sure you're aware of that when you provide those credentials. The next step is setting up your first list. We're going to walk through the sync settings first, and that will give us the next biggest difference between plans, or the biggest differences between plans. So here we are in the sync settings. The way that the integration works is that it's pairing a target list in Sugar with a MailChimp audience. It is a one-to-one relationship, but you can have more than one list syncing. So for example, I can have one list that has all of my contacts and leads that are syncing over to MailChimp, or I could have one list for leads and another list for contacts if that's how you need to set it up. I'll show you a little bit more in just a few minutes on where you see those lists and how you set up multiple ones. So here we are. I've got my target list. I'm syncing this target list to this audience. And now I just need to tell the integration who I want to send to MailChimp. So you'll see that we sync various modules. These are all the same options under all of these. This first option here, this is part of our basic plan, this basic plan here. So essentially what that is that is allowing us to sync people who are on the target list. However, we have to manually manage the target list. So when I want to sync someone to MailChimp, I add them to the target list. If that person should no longer be in MailChimp, I remove them from the target list. The second option here, this is part of the professional plan. It's this automated list population feature. With this feature, I can sync all of my contacts over to MailChimp. The integration would monitor Sugar and wait for a new contact to be added. And when one is added, it would add them to the target list on your behalf, which would then sync over to MailChimp. These third and fourth options here, these are part of the ultimate plan. It is the sync by field filters and sync by SQL query features. So with these options, I can send a subset of people over to MailChimp. So for example, if I have 100,000 leads, but I know that I'm only actively campaigning to 20,000 of the most recent or the ones that have a certain lead status or lead type or lead source, whatever makes sense based on my workflow, I can create some filters and I can say, you know what, I only want people who have a certain lead source to be synced over to MailChimp for this list. That will do a couple of things. One, it keeps your MailChimp list a little neater, simpler to organize and see the data that you have. It will also cut down on your MailChimp costs. MailChimp charges by the subscriber. So if you have 100,000 records in your CRM, but you don't need all of them, you can sync just the ones you need. We also have a more advanced SQL query. If you have a scenario where the filters just don't quite fit what you need, you can write your own SQL query. Something like, I'm trying to think of a customer use case for this. We had a customer who only wanted to sync contacts that were added to the CRM within the last 2 years. The filters don't capture that kind of date created option, and so they wrote a SQL query to capture the ones that they needed based on that scenario. The last step here is because it's a bi-directional sync, you got to tell the integration how records should be created when they come back to Sugar. So some people will use MailChimp web forms or landing pages in order to gather leads, for example. So when they're setting up their list, they would say, when this new record subscribes to my audience in MailChimp, I want to create this record as a lead when they come back to Sugar. So the integration would create that new record as a lead in Sugar, and then from Sugar, the whoever, your sales guys or whatever, can take the lead from there with following up with this person. So that tells us who to sync to Sugar. Now we're going to walk through what to sync to Sugar. So I'm sorry, who to sync to MailChimp, and now we're going to talk about what to sync to MailChimp. So SugarChimp is pretty flexible. It allows you to send data from Sugar to MailChimp. This allows you to use the latest data to segment your campaigns, things like contact type or a person's birthday, anything that would be relevant in order to really narrow down the scope of your campaigns and to be a little bit more strategic in the campaigns that you send. So here is our field mapping page. I've selected the audience that I want to update. Our we have some support articles that kind of walk you through how to do this, so no need to worry too much about the details just right now. Essentially, we have the MailChimp audience on the left-hand side. So in MailChimp, I've created merge tags, or I've created a group depending on the type of data that I'm receiving from Sugar. And then from there, I'm just going to select for the type of record it is. I'm just going to use the drop down to select which field in Sugar that field over in MailChimp should receive. So it's a pretty simple matching up process. One thing that I'll note here is that the basic and the professional plans give you access to sync data at the contact, the target, or the lead level. If you have contacts that also have an associated account, so for example, here for this contact, I want to bring down the account name for this person. Or maybe I wanted to bring down, another related field like the assigned user for an account, but that's associated with this contact. That would actually be part of the ultimate plan. It is let me find it here, the advanced field mapping feature. So it allows us to pull down related information that's associated with this contact, like account or the assigned user. So that's just something to keep in mind as you're trying to decide which plan is best for you. If you use the accounts module and you're wanting to bring account information related to this contact over to MailChimp, that would require that ultimate plan. One last thing before I show you where to see the integration, we're actually going to pop over to our health status page, and this is a good place to kind of just keep an eye on how the integration is doing. Just to give you a little bit of context for how the integration works, I'm going to kind of walk you through this page a little bit. So at the top, you can see we've just got some basic information. Is everything connected and what version are you on? We're going to skip over this. And then down here, we have our queues. So we kind of keep track of how much data is waiting to go over to MailChimp and waiting to come from MailChimp. This kind of gives you, most of the time you may actually just see 0 here, but from time to time you'll be able to see, okay, this queue it's going up and then it's going down. That's perfect. That's good information. That means that the integration is working as it should. Down here at the bottom, you'll have the lists that you are syncing. So this is where you would see if you had more than one list. You would set them both up through the sync settings like we did that first one. And I would see, oh, I've got a leads list and a contacts list or whatever I named them. I would see them here. I can always remove the sync if it's no longer appropriate for me to sync this, if it's not something I want to do anymore. The last thing that I'll point out on this page are our schedulers. We have 2 of them. This top scheduler is called our SugarChimp scheduler. By default, it runs every 5 minutes, and this is responsible for sending data from Sugar to MailChimp. So as records are updated, maybe a contact type changed or someone changed a name of a specific record, that data would come over here, sit in the queue, and then every 5 minutes we would send that data over to MailChimp to make sure that MailChimp is kept up to date. The other scheduler that we have is the Smart List scheduler. This scheduler is responsible for moving data within Sugar, basically moving those records over to the target list as needed. So in the instance where we're syncing all of our records, that professional level where we're syncing all contacts over to MailChimp, or if we're using the school query or the filters, the Smart List data would, or the Smart List scheduler would be responsible for moving that record to the target list if it was appropriate. So essentially, the integration would monitor Sugar. It would determine if someone meets the criteria of the list if you're using a filter, or that a new contact had been added if you were syncing all contacts. This scheduler here would add it to the target list, and then your SugarChimp scheduler up here would actually move the data over to MailChimp. So the reason I point this out is just it's helpful information to know in a scenario where you're syncing all your contacts to MailChimp, from the point that a new contact is added to your Sugar instance to the point that it's actually received in MailChimp could be up to 10 minutes if you leave our default interval. Basically, that Smart List scheduler would add them to the target list, and then the SugarChimp scheduler would move them to MailChimp. So about 10 minutes for a new record to be added. All right, let's go ahead and pop over to where you see the integration within Sugar. So the first place is here within your dashboard. We have a MailChimp campaign summary. Basically, this gives you an at-a-glance view of any campaign within MailChimp. So from the drop-down, you would select a campaign name. I could view the email directly if I wanted context for what was sent in this email, and then I can get some overview statistics about this campaign. So I could see, oh, 2 people opened it, a person clicked, and just kind of get some general information. It's worth noting here that this isn't interactive, so I couldn't click on this too and get the 2 people who had opened this campaign. We do have that information, and I'll show you that in a few moments. This particular view is really helpful for people who have Sugar accounts, they don't have MailChimp accounts, and maybe they really don't need any. So maybe you have salespeople or account managers, they would be able to click on a campaign and just kind of get a general overview about that campaign if they're curious about how campaigns are doing and you're wanting to make sure that you're increasing the cooperation between teams. The next place is at the record level. So we're going to pop over here to a specific contact. Let me pull up my record here. Just one moment. All right, so here we are at a contact level. I'm on a small screen. I've kind of got a small viewing area, so there's a little bit of runoff here. However, the first place that you see is this dashlet. So I've got a MailChimp activity dashlet. This is a live view of the data in MailChimp. So every time I load this page, we reach out to MailChimp to grab the latest information, and then we display it here. It shows the list that I'm subscribed to, or that this record is subscribed to. It's using this email address as our identifier. So it's showing the list that this person subscribed to, as well as their campaign activity. So I can see that they were sent to campaign, and then they opened and clicked. It looks like at exactly the right time. They clicked into a specific link in the campaign. So we've got our date stamps. If I wanted to see what they actually clicked on, I have this URL down here. This shows me the link that they clicked on. If I wanted to see the email that they were sent and that they opened, I could click this link here, and that would give me that information. One quick thing, with the basic plan, you'll see just the date stamp and then the activity, so open, clicked, or sent. You would see the name here. However, this link that appears down here and here, that is part of the professional plan. So that uses a little bit of a different process, and so we have to use some professional features to get that data here. So that's just worth noting that if you have the basic plan, you're going to see just the timestamp and the activity as well as the name. The next thing that you'll see on this page as we scroll down on the left-hand side, when you install the integration, we add a new field called MailChimp rating. So MailChimp has an algorithm to determine how engaged your subscribers are. They actually don't publicize their algorithm that determines that, but basically the more opens and clicks you have, the higher the stars. And we bring that information and we display that over at your record level. So just keep that in mind when you install the integration, that you'll start seeing this MailChimp rating appear. Some companies will use this. They'll actually pull a report of everybody who has, all the leads who have 4 stars or more, and that'll be kind of their hot leads list. I various ways that it can be used. The next thing that you'll see is down here, the MailChimp activity subpanel. This is part of the professional and ultimate plans where we sync the data to your CRM. So just kind of the difference between the dashlet and the subpanel here. The dashlet is just displaying the information. Over here, we haven't actually synced anything. Um, Particularly helpful if you have the basic plan. However, with a professional plan, we're actually going to sync this data over to your CRM instance, and therefore you have this information. Now, at the record level, it's not particularly helpful because you have the dashlet, and so there's really no reason to scroll down if you can see the information right here on the right-hand side. But what's really helpful for this is that because we are syncing the data, you can then use it in your reports. The MailChimp Activities module is a reportable module where you can pull data. When you install your integration, we start two reports. We actually create two reports just to get you started. Um, but you can use that module to provide other reporting data. So if you wanted to pull a report of everybody who clicked a specific link, um, you could do that using the reporting tools. The other thing that I'll mention with reports is because this is just a lot of pieces of data that we're having to send to your Sugar server, we don't want to overwhelm Sugar, and therefore we do this only once a day. We kind of do a coordinated pull of the data from MailChimp, and we sync it from MailChimp to Sugar every 24 hours. So just keep that in mind that when you are building reports, it's possible that the data is not completely up to date. It's possible it may be delayed a little bit. Just something to keep in mind. All right, let me quickly pop back over here. I think that is all the features that are worth noting, or basically all the features. It is. So the last thing that I'll point out in terms of the differences between plans is with the basic and the professional plan, we kind of expect that you'll do the installation and the setup kind of on your own. And then if you get stuck, just let us know. We're always happy to hop on a call or work through email to kind of work through issues. Definitely don't want you to get stuck. But with the ultimate plan, we offer more of a guided setup. So basically what that means is when you sign up for the ultimate plan, we schedule an initial call with you to install the integration together and maybe set up your first list. It's about an hour, so depending on how much time we have, we try to get through those two things. And then once we've done that, about 2 weeks later, we follow back up with you and we just check in to see how things are going. We see if there's a particular use case that you're wanting to hit, but you haven't been able to figure out. It's just more of a little bit more hand holding, but that's available with the ultimate plan. We do offer a free 30-day trial, so we typically just recommend you start a trial, install it, see how it works, and if you have any trouble, of course, let us know. We're happy to kind of walk through things, but being able to be hands-on and be able to see the data over in MailChimp is a really good way to see the integration and to really get a good feel for how it works.